Welcome to tonight's talking points. The issue at hand, toxic words. There are certain words in the English dictionary that should be obsolete by now, but they're not. They do more bad than good. In fact, they are responsible for many of today's human rights violations. These words are logical, normal, realistic, legal, and natural. Allow me to further explain. Normal changes in time and distance. Normal changes, and yet we use it as a tool to define each other and what we should or should not be allowed to do. What is normal in America is abnormal in Brazil. What was normal today was abnormal in 1960. What is normal in Judaism is seen as strange in Christianity. The ways of your family may be abnormal compared to the ways of your friend's family. So how can we honestly sit here and define each other by the word normal, when the word normal itself does not hold true to anything? How many of us have been guilty of saying, well, that's just wrong because it's not normal? Stop. Think about refraining from this word. See how embracing abnormal opens your mind. Let's take the word legal. The idea of legal or illegal is put in place by humans and what they think should be law. Yet again, we use that term to define a person's worthiness. How sad is that? Multiple times in the past, we have seen bankers be legally bailed out for bad decisions that they have made, causing terrible economic recession, to the point where thousands, if not millions, have lost their homes and entire life savings. And yet, they did all of that legally. Need something more to think about? Last year, banks collected more than 30 billion US dollars. Yes, 30 billion in overdraft fees alone. Overdraft means people without money, poor people, which means those people are currently going through some kind of poverty. So in a way, it means that banks stole $30 billion from people that did not have any money. The banks who we trust to protect our money said, well, when you run out, we are going to penalize you for that. And they do that legally and call it normal. If I could pass legislation to protect those running short in cash, the poor, living paycheck to paycheck, and give the world a better sense of the human condition and today's climate, I would gladly commit what would be seen as an illegal act. Yet a hungry homeless person stealing food from a grocery store would be in prison for an act that is illegal. And all he was trying to do is feed himself. Now, of course, I'm not encouraging shoplifting or looting, but putting these things into perspective is very important, something we don't do enough of. Think about this. Many Jews in the world would never have been born if it was not for brave people in Europe, such as the Austrians, the Dutch, and even many Germans, who illegally hid them from Nazi officers. Despise it as much as you want, but at that time, in those places, it was illegal to protect those innocent human beings. Again, not only do I condone it, but in matters such as these, I encourage doing something. Silence is agreeing with the perpetrator. Do not be silent. Natural. It wasn't too long ago that all sorts of organizations stood up against IVF treatments and test tube babies. Today, they are considered very natural. They allow the natural process of life. The argument against IVF treatments was, and still is, that it was just plain unnatural. I disagree. It was once said it would not only be impossible, but also unnatural for aviation to exist. Yet here we are. Every day, millions get on a plane and fly like a bird to another destination. Is that natural? Do humans naturally fly? We defy nature every time we do that. Let's take logic. Is it really possible to live without logic? Well, my answer to that is I do not believe in logic, and neither do I reduce myself to logic. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the definition of logic is a proper or reasonable way of thinking about or understanding something. To me, logic is just plain wrong and degrading to our capabilities and powers as a human being. Logical is a word that is erroneous. It cannot be used as a tool to identify. Name one great thing in this world that came because of logic. Can you? I can name hundreds, millions of great things in the world that came because someone was brave enough to not believe in logic and to go against it, while also not caring if it was normal or natural. You might consider my views unrealistic, and that's okay. It would be illogical of me to think that you should see the world the same way I do or anyone else does. But realistic to me is boring. It's too mediocre to even consider. Let's take electricity. This concept defied logic. If we look at the definition of the word, it would not have been a reasonable way of thinking to assume some magical force would replace candles and fireplaces as a source of light. But outspoken, weird people, geniuses, such as Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Edison, were brave enough to defy logic. They were ridiculed, laughed at, even considered mentally unstable by many when proclaiming that such a source of light and energy could exist. Can you imagine the state of the world if they had fallen prey to the crowd and given up on their science simply because it was not logical? For one, you wouldn't be watching this. So, to the weird ones, Mr. Franklin and Mr. Edison, I thank you for being two of the most illogical people to ever exist. I hope there's more. Let's take realistic. I think everything we've been talking about is truly seen as unrealistic by most. Many would say it's unrealistic to consider these as truths. No surprise here. I don't believe in that either. Think about this for a few minutes. Let it sink in. Right, there are a million laws, penalties, punishments for financial and money crimes. But how many laws are there for emotional crimes? Near to none. Is that not illogical? People are disloyal, cheat, betray, gossip, emotionally disturb someone, and yet they walk around scot-free. Sadly, everyday politics, governments, religions, organizations, and cults commit gross acts against humanity, and they do so legally. Phrases you hear every day are, let's be realistic, we can't stop terrorism, we can't end human slavery. Let's be realistic. I disagree. Let's be unrealistic. Let's embrace the idea that it was unrealistic to cure polio, to have the internet. None of this was seen as realistic. I'm just glad many thought otherwise, and I hope they continue to do so. I don't expect you to change every thought simply because I, or anyone for that matter, puts forth an alternative way of thinking. But let us allow our time here on earth to mean something great. Is that too unrealistic to ask or to even imagine? It confuses me and troubles me that humanity and our success has been based on the fact that we have surpassed and defeated all kinds of physical and natural borders to spread all over this world. And those physical boundaries are no small challenge. I'm talking about climbing the highest mountains, navigating the roughest seas, building wells in the driest of deserts. But sadly and disastrously, it's the same race, and by race I refer to humans, that find it hard to surpass or defeat man-made borders, mental borders, things such as country borders, political borders, religious borders, borders of prejudice, class borders, wealth status borders, etc., etc. I urge each and every one of you to consider eradicating these words from your vocabulary. Make them defunct. Do not judge others by using these words. We are not better or less than someone because we don't fit into these words. And though they are just words, it's the thought behind them that worry me the most. Nobody is legal or illegal, normal or abnormal. Thank you for listening to tonight's Talking Points. I will surely have more to come. I'm Pritan Ambroase, signing off.